DFS show with John Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with James Grande. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Playbook live show for the Tuesday 8-game main slate here on DraftKings. Your guy Justin Carlucci's on the Playbook today. Grande did your prize picks, underdog, and sleeper picks. You can find all of those live over on Fantasy Alarm here to get you guys ready for tonight's NBA action once again as we hit towards the end of the NBA regular season. James, we have teams that are tanking. We have teams that are trying to pretend like they aren't tanking but tanking. We have teams ruling star players out. We have teams playing star players for halves of games. It is the madness that is the end of the NBA season, but there are still opportunities to make money on these slates, and tonight could be one of those nights.
We used to worry about only April, and now it's been since the All-Star break.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which is February. So, yeah, I mean, it's the wild, wild west out here, and we're just doing what we can to survive, and survive we will, John. And survive and conquer. That's what I'll say.
I wonder how much of this year particularly and some of the previous years have to do with like the draft class. Like you had the tank for Wemby, right? Now you have the tank for Cooper Flag, right? Like these sort of like
and like beyond, because like Ace Bailey, the two Rutgers guys, like this is a loaded class.
Right. Nobody was really tanking for Zachariah Richeche or Alexander.
Did we know Richeche was going to be? Richeche was first pick when we found out he was first pick.
Right. So like last year's draft class was widely regarded as like not a great draft class coming off of the Wemby class, and now you have this draft class where teams are doing whatever they can to get in the lottery. Philly's doing everything they can to keep their lottery pick, right? Like because they know that they're going to have to reset, rebuild. So,
dude, OKC tried to out-tank Philly versus Philly to win that pick back.
Right.
The best team in the NBA was like, hey, if we can get Cooper Flag, we might as well try, right?
Right. So, I mean, listen, it is what it is here. Again, we got a couple of weeks left. I think it was like the 17th. I think it is the last, or the 19th, I think, of April, I think is the end of the regular NBA regular season. So we got a few more weeks, and there will be some random 10-day contract guys that pop in here and like drop a 50 bomb. I always, I'm going to tell the story, but I forget the name. He played for the Lakers, and they called him up, and he was like 30 years old, making it's like rookie debut, and he's dropping like 25 points a game to end up. Remember who I'm talking about there? Can't. Someone in the chat's going to remember the name, but. Sorry about that. There's there's going to be some craziness here to go down, but we'll do our best, continue to break it all down for you. Be here each and every day live at 5. We'll still do the preview shows, even with the MLB season only a couple of days away. We're still here for the NBA content for you guys. So that said, we appreciate all of you.
I thought you were going Kenny Loft or was it Lofton?
Oh, Kenneth Lofton. Yes, Kenneth Lofton had a 50 like actual game for Memphis like last year.
Andre.
That sounds right.
30-year-old Lakers.
It was like 8 years ago.
Andre Ingram.
Yeah, Ingram. Yeah. He popped in, just 10-dayed up from the G League, like 30-something years old, and like popped in and like had some like meaningful fantasy games to end the season. So yes, Cam Johnson ruled out for tomorrow. So we got that going on. Brooklyn already just tanking their season out. Kenneth Lofton last year, last day of the season,
had 50 bomb.
Had a 50 bomb. So we'll have that. We'll have the Baylor Shireman game at some point down the stretch. Tatum rolling the ankle. Boston media is like, what are we doing? Why are we playing? We can't move. We're in the 2 seed. Like, what's the point? Sit everybody, so we got that. Listen, what did we say about Elf Payton in that game, right? There's no way to know whether he was going to play any sort of meaningful minutes unless he started in that game. their rotation is just too difficult to project. He played 25 minutes. He had 14 assists. Yeah, you know what? That's gonna happen. There's nothing you could do there. 3K could have played him. We should have known, I guess. I don't know. You tell me.
I think he was 0.00 1% rostered last
I was gonna say nobody played him, and if he wasn't starting, there was a chance he wasn't playing. But he had a ceiling game off the bench.
Yep.
You could play him the next time, and he may not play at all. So
absolute elf.
We did that with Tristan Vukcevic. We all played Vukcevic a couple slates ago. 26% of the field played him. Played 4 minutes. You have no idea with these guys when they're not starting. So always some risk. So you can ask them who you want. We're going to give us our honest opinions. We're not trying to sway you off like plays that we're playing ourselves. We're playing the same guys we recommend. So it is what it is here. Your top overall spends up on the slate. SGA and Cade up over $10,000, as is Towns. So we'll see which direction we go there. On the preview show, we were talking a lot about Cade. Certainly like the spot for him. Assuming the calf is good to go. You highlighted in that Detroit game, they were down multiple players, not just Cade. And that led to some minutes for bench guys. Ron Holland had a smash spot. Sasser played a bunch of minutes. If everything, and Asor Thompson had the foul trouble, if things are status quo there, then sure, there's going to be some value that we can look at. Otherwise, Cade versus San Antonio, it's like one of my favorite plays on the entire board today.
Yeah, he went their shoot around this morning too. There's video of him on the floor with a jersey on, so he was playing. I was watching him shoot the basketball, so that is confirmed that at least he went their shoot around. Obviously, a good sign. But yeah, it's a great spot, and I don't know if the field is not getting to him because the concern of the calf, or the field doesn't like the spot. I don't know, but he's 10% rostered. So
yeah, and we see ownership move as lineups become confirmed and whatnot.
Sure.
So there's a chance, it's 6:30. This is our 7:00 game. 6:30, he's in that starting lineup, and all of a sudden maybe Cade starts to move. In the direction there.
That is also though, like, I feel like that's like yes, but not when it's like you see questionable players highly rostered all the time. True. Especially when it's an elite guy.
There is a lot of value at point guard today.
Oh, so much value. I love Cade. I would say maybe the most interesting storyline of the day is probably an OKC. And that would put SGA on my radar. So obviously we knew J-Dub and Chet were on the injury report.
Yeah.
They have since downgraded both Aaron Wiggins and Cason Wallace as well. So you could be looking at a scenario if you see Chet, J-Dub, Aaron Wiggins, Cason Wallace ruled out, where it's SGA and Isaiah Hartenstein spamming pick and roll for 48 minutes tonight. And against the absolute cratering Kings, that would be, you would get the lowest owned SGA probably of the year in the 10 p.m. window.
Yeah.
At low ownership.
But in a game with a 238 total.
In a game with a 238 total, that realistically, if you're looking at the way things pan out, like if that breaks that way where OKC's down 4 key rotation pieces, like it should stay close enough to get full run of SGA. So I think that's an interesting conversation as well. Obviously, again, you definitely have to have some exposure to the 10 p.m. window, Cleveland, Portland, or OKC.
That's what it is, right? You can play SGA in your lineup, and then if those guys are in and you don't want to go that route anymore, you can pivot down to the Cleveland side. So
yep. It's actually, I think, a great strategy because the Cleveland side is good to begin with, and then the pivot to SGA could be very fruitful as well.
Right, agreed. All right, so those are your top 2 guys here. I don't have much interest in LaMelo versus Orlando. I know you did highlight Ball and his shooting. If he makes his shots, he has a high ceiling. He's still filling out the stat sheet. Trae Young obviously have some big games. He gets Houston here on the road at $9,600. Waiting on the Curry news. There's a lot in the mid range that we can go to as well. But do you find yourself like targeting any of those when we have 40+% of the field in on 2 guys with point guard eligibility today.
I mean, I will say I think Trey is interesting in tournaments, low ownership. I know it's a tough spot, but that game environment is really good. 236 implied points, 8-point spread. We know how good Atlanta's offense can be and how good Trey has been lately. So I would say a little stock into Trey Young in tournaments. But I largely agree with what you just said. Darius Garland, I'm good with in the mid-tier. Depending on what happens with Dallas, you could talk me into some Spencer Dinwiddie in the mid-tier as well, because Dallas has listed half their team on the injury report tonight. And I was looking at some things. If Dallas, who has PJ Washington and Brandon Williams listed as questionable, if those 2 players sit, they will have 8 available tonight. So we're back to square one with Dallas, where they don't have anyone available. They have to play 8 guys, and one of them's Dwight Powell.
Yeah.
So like they basically have 7.5 players. So yeah, that would put me that would put my interest level in someone like Spencer Dinwiddie much higher.
Yeah, because he'd play the 40 minutes we saw him play.
He would play 40 minutes. 40 minutes. I know you're gonna be shocked when I say this. I do have moderate to serious interest in Keontae George tonight.
Playing a Utah player?
So just like looking through, it's if Jordan Clarkson sits.
Yeah.
Keontae George, 28% usage, 1.1 fantasy points per 1.1 fantasy points per minute. He is the one guy you can look at and be like, all right, the minutes are fine. Right? Like the minutes have been good on Keontae George pretty consistently. So that game, John, is by far the best on the board. 240 implied points in that game. 2 top 10 teams in pace. Memphis, obviously, we know is the fastest pace in the league. So, if it stays within the 10.5, I think that there's some intrigue on the Utah side, primarily with the guys that we know will play minutes.
Sure.
And we'll even talk about your favorite player in the NBA when we get to center, because everyone knows, you root for a Utah Jazz center more than most people. So
I do. I did it one time. It went horrifically for me. So
well, I will say 6,100 for Keontae George stands out to me. Keon Ellis would be in play if Malik Monk sits out again. We just got a little while ago the questionable again for Malik Monk. But Ellis has obviously started in back-to-back games, played big minutes. We know he has the ceiling.
I mean, he's going to be the one on SGA in this.
He is going to be the one on SGA. That's the problem with playing, because the fouls. Like OKC doesn't get a lot of free throws. SGA gets a lot of free throws.
Yeah, well, the free throw merchant comes to town.
You're in trouble. And Keon is a very aggressive defender. So there's players you cannot be aggressive against, or. It's like you said it. James Harden, no one better in the history of the game than James Harden at it, right? Like drawing fouls.
They had to change the rules basically
because of James Harden. Yep.
Creating the contact. So you can't just go in and throw your shoulder into a guy anymore and get the call, even though that is what SGA is doing in getting the calls. Like they basically flipped the script there. When Harden went a decade averaging, 12 free throw attempts a game. So
it's crazy.
All right, Scottie Pippen's up over 40%. He and Campaign 46 and 5K. Those are your chalk point guards tonight. I've been team Scottie Pippen, whenever he's been given the minutes. It's not like you haven't necessarily argued that either.
No.
You talk Kennard at times as well. Pippen's usage rate isn't great, but fantasy points per minute wise, he just does everything. So
yeah, I've never argued that Pippen and he started last game. That's all I was ever asking for, right? All I was asking for, and it's been like a conversation I have a lot, and you see my Twitter filled with it. How like this situation, everyone will play Pippen no matter what. Nobody plays Kennard. Kennard has good fantasy point per minute output. When Kennard starts, nobody even cares. It's like the same thing in Milwaukee. When Dame sits, Ryan Rollins starts. Nobody cares. Everyone plays Kevin Porter. There's just certain situations where people just refuse to look at like the starter as the option. Well, if Scottie Pippen's starting, he's the option. Like
Yeah.
that 21% usage you mentioned it's not bad for, what he is as a player. Like
Right.
he's the definitive like third, possibly fourth option offensively. And he's over almost 1.1 fantasy points per minute. Great
the block,
defensively.
steals, assists, like he does everything. So
yeah, he's very good on the defensive end for being a smaller guard. So yeah, absolutely locking Scottie Pippen. The campaign one I think is a little more interesting because I do think that there's potentially some pivots away from that. Obviously, Schroeder, immediate pivot. Like if Cade gets rolled out, I'd play Schroeder over Cade. Almost immediately. I'd play Schroeder over Schroeder over campaign. I think I would play Chris Paul over campaign if Stephon Castle were to be ruled out. Stephon Castle got hurt, left last game, and didn't return. I'd almost make an argument that Ty Jerome could be a better play than campaign tonight. Campaign, mostly the advantage that campaign has over all of those guys is the positional eligibility, where Chris Paul, point guard only, Ty Jerome, point guard only. And you're right. But also, John, and I don't know if it had to do with Washington or what, they played Tyler Kolek the whole second quarter. They played him like 11 straight minutes the other day. They played campaign the whole first quarter. They then came back with Kolek the whole second quarter. I'm not saying campaign can't get 30 minutes, but, he's a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. So at 30 minutes, that's definitely fine. I don't think campaign has the ceiling that Ty Jerome has. If Ty Jerome were to get extended at 30 minutes, I don't think he has the ceiling if we got Chris Paul for 30 minutes. I would rather play Chris Paul, who's over a fantasy point per minute, without Stephon Castle this year. So where I agree right now, if everything is status quo and Stephon Castle plays and Ty Jerome, who projects for mid-20s minutes, doesn't play more than that, I get why campaign would have 2x to 4x ownership over the other guys. But I do think when you're thinking about range of outcome, there's a legit case for someone like Chris Paul without Castle or
Schroeder if there's
Jerome.
no Cade.
And no, Schroeder too. I mentioned Schroeder as well, but Schroeder as well. I would play Schroeder over campaign in a heartbeat. That wouldn't even be a discussion. So it's a very interesting position. I think Scottie of the group is the most locked in. Kennard does deserve some attention. It's a really bad Utah defense that Luke Kennard just might be open for every shot he takes. If you remember, this is the 30 actual point game from Luke Kennard, not too long ago, a couple weeks ago. Luke Kennard hit 7 threes against them because Utah just lets shooters open all night long. So it's a very interesting point guard position. And I'll save Alex Caruso for small forward so we can talk about value, but I think there's some Caruso love there as well.
Okay. Shooting guard then. Bane is 89, keeping the Memphis talk consistent there. Again, I think most of them are going to be in play against Utah, including one of your favorite plays down the line. Wagner coming off finally a ceiling game. It was bound to happen. It happened against LA, 32, 9, and 5. Both him and Banchero scored 30 actual in that game. So that's the two-man that they run there. Charlotte's certainly not a good defensive team. Do you have any interest, spending up in this top half of the shooting guard position? Because they're obviously dual positional eligibility. A lot of the guys at point guard we just discussed, you can play here as well.
I want to circle back quickly because you mentioned Charlotte. I forgot we did not mention Anthony Black, and I want to mention Anthony Black, $3,800 point guard. I know they're starting Corey Joseph, but that's just his title. That's not finishing Corey Joseph. Anthony Black has played extremely well. He is someone who stuffs the stat sheet, and when he makes shots, he has a very high ceiling at $3,800. So I don't know. I kind of just forgot for a second, but yes, $3,800 Anthony Black. Charlotte, thank you for reminding me. They are very bad defensively, and that we can go back to Franz Wagner in that light because. I mean, look, we've kind of crapped on Franz because of the ceiling, and mostly because of the price.
I mean,
right?
I'm still not going to go here. If he goes for 50 again, then that's fine. Like, I'm not going to pay 80. Not on this slate. I'm not going to pay $80, $100 for Wagner.
I don't disagree that like we have crapped on him. I just went and looked at the numbers earlier today, and what I saw was like, we're starting to get really good Wagner, because he would have smashed in that Washington game. Obviously, he only played 24 minutes. 35% usage rate, 1.2 fantasy points per minute when you're removing Cole Anthony, Mo Wagner, and Jalen Suggs off the floor. Like, 35% usage is huge. 1.2 fantasy points per minute is also huge. Like, if you get that again at that clip and you get the 38 minutes out of Wagner.
I mean, we've gotten 38 minutes out of him in these games, and he hasn't really paid
I'm
off.
I'm saying at 1.2 fantasy points per minute, and you get what you got last night. Sure. I think that's well within the range of outcome.
Sure.
And we've both been crapping on him, but
it's the price. If he was $1,000 cheaper, he'd be an automatic plug, right? It's just
but if he was $1,000 cheaper, he'd be 90% rostered.
Yeah, probably true. So you have Wagner there again. I don't see myself paying $80 to $100 for him, but like you said, in a tournament, sure. Coming off of a ceiling game there. You mentioned Dinwiddie, obviously. Vassell's there. Is there anybody that's shooting guard only that you'd play that we didn't talk about at point guard?
Mikal Bridges, 65. I like the Knicks. Dallas looked really good with Anthony Davis defensively yesterday. Granted, the opponent wasn't great, but I do really like the Knicks. Without Anthony Davis in March, they're 29th defensively. No Anthony Davis here. Bridges has looked pretty good for the Knicks. Obviously, like, the scoring has been a hot topic all year for him. The numbers still don't look amazing. 22.5% usage, 0.9 fantasy points per minute, but he's been better since the All-Star break. So, yeah, I think 6,500 shooting guard small forward Mikal Bridges would probably be the guy that stands out the most to me.
Sure. Obviously, Cade, still a game time decision. Guys like Beasley would pop up here a little bit. There's no Steph. There's Moody. Levert.
And THJ, for Beasley's sake. Yeah. THJ is questionable. He started for THJ last game.
Yep. If everybody's out, does Dort bump for you?
Maybe. He has a ceiling.
I mean, if there were all of the guys that are questionable today, right? Like,
yeah, I don't love the price, but it's fine. I mean, I don't know.
He had 48 fantasy points.
Yeah, I mean, he has a ceiling. he has a ceiling. That's I'm not like gonna go any further than that.
Does Hardy get extended?
I'm not playing Jaden Hardy on 8 games late. If they have 8 guys, we'll talk then. If they have 8,
Isaiah Joe.
Yeah, if everyone gets ruled out, all the ancillary pieces are probably going to be harder to get to OKC stuff, but yeah, if they all get ruled out, I could be talked into it.
Did we get a Wesley sighting tonight?
I hope not. I mean, he's been playing. He's always been kind of good.
Use first round pick on him. So
do the minutes increase? Probably. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I mean, if he were to
if Castle's out, I definitely don't hate it at $3,300.
Yeah, I mean, they're another like really cheap point guard at a position that has a lot of really cheap point guards. So
good way to differentiate yourself. Any other shooting guards?
Same light, Julian Champagny. If there's no Stephon Castle, he could also be another guy that benefits. Vince Williams is getting a lot of ownership, $3,500. I'm a little on the fence about this one just because we just have rarely seen him extended. But I do like the 11 shots. But man, he has been bad shooting the basketball this year.
Yeah, not been good. You mentioned Sasser, point guard, right?
No, but it would be a situation where
Yeah. Again, we'll know 7:00 start time, so we'll have clarity on Detroit before the roster lock tonight. So that's at least a benefit to us. Small forward. Again, Bucket's been popular among the betting touts today. Everybody just buying into the Bucket's revenge. Ownership though on Butler,
less than 1%. It's been that way all day
on Butler. Not really either buying in or don't like the price.
He's a bad play. He's a bad play. I said it last night. He's a bad play. He's a bad play. I'll straight out say it. If I lose because I don't play an $8,700 Jimmy Butler, happy for him.
Bad play because of the matchup against
terrible paced game.
Yep.
Absolutely awful. Worst game on the board. I've completely X'd this game off my board. Yeah. Andrew Wiggins is like a really popular play tonight.
Yeah.
And that is the chasiest thing I've ever seen because he scored 42 points. This is like not a good game environment. It is better for the Heat. Honestly, it is better for the Heat. Heat are 27th in pace, despite how bad they've been in March. They're still top half of the league defensively.
Sure.
I just don't. And if Steph plays, what is the appeal to an $8,700 Jimmy Butler? You need on an 8-game slate. You need 45 fantasy points just for basically 5x. So you basically need 50 plus out of him to have any real chance at winning a tournament.
It's a total buy-in on the revenge narrative. Again, this is from the betting tout side. The DFS, again, ownership is not there on him. But if you go and scroll Twitter today, everybody's taking overs. I listened to XM today, and they had a betting show on, and they were talking basketball. And they were taking the overs on the rebounds, on the assists, the over 20.5 points. Like everybody's in on Jimmy Buckets today, except the DFS world apparently.
And that's what we're playing here, folks. So I am out.
All right. Well, someone's gonna be right.
You're right. I will be on the opposite side or the correct side, and I'm fine with that. You're not talking me into this. It's a bad play. It's a bad play.
Okay. So Buckets is 87. Where else do you look to go at small forward today?
We had a Amen Thompson question from our boy Faisal. I think it's definitely fine. Definitely fine. Has a ceiling, has had a massive ceiling in one of the 2 games since being back. Was in foul trouble in the other one. You know, this is a game. Trae Young is tops in the league in turnovers. Amen Thompson, very good on that end, forcing turnovers, really big pace-up spot for Houston. So I don't hate it.
The minutes are back up.
Minutes are back. Yeah, Houston's just a tough team in general. They are playing like a shortened rotation, obviously, but you know, they are very highly priced. Like there's no discount on anything Houston other than Van Vliet, basically the only discount we get. So I do like Thompson. You know, PJ popping up questionable second night of a back-to-back. I don't love. If he sits, you could definitely make a case for Najee Marshall at $7,900 because there's no AD as well. Another situation where now you look at it, you're like, oh, it makes sense why 10 players played 15 to 30 minutes last night because they were gearing up for the back-to-back to rest a bunch of guys. So if Najee's in play, if those guys sit, you can play Denny Avdia basically any night you want tonight. Portland still in the play-in hunt. There's, I think, 2.5 games out, so they're still running these guys out for monster minutes. Denny has been their best player for probably a couple months now, if not the whole year, at least their most consistent player. So I do think Denny Avdia is in play in tournaments. OG Anunoby is definitely solid, has been scoring, and anytime he scores, there's a really high ceiling with Anunoby. The Wiggins one, you know, he has been good. I won't like sit here and say he hasn't been good, like beside the 41 or 42 actual point game, like he has been pretty consistent. This is a paced up spot, you know, in the month of March. just in general, Miami's 27th in pace, Golden State's 15th or 28th in pace, Miami's 15th. So it's like naturally a pace up spot. Probably too cheap for his role right now. But man, he's fourth highest rostered small forward of the day. I don't love it.
The price is the value there.
The price is good.
And we've kind of run into it a lot. Like small forward is has been a iffy position at times this season. So mix all that in, and people are kind of getting their value at small forward for you today.
This is not like the best position, man. The Asar Thompson ownership has sent me all day because it's just stuck around, and I know there was foul trouble. You usually don't. It's so weird how the field has handled Detroit today, because you typically don't see this, where like his ownership is this high while Cade's isn't. Like we just got the Bickerstaff update. They're both still questionable, yeah. Cade and THJ. It's like there's nothing definitive, and yet we're getting this much rostership on a guy that 3 times this year has even sniffed 30 minutes.
Yeah, like I said, it could all go away at 6:30 when the official lineup comes out.
So I'm kind of out if it stays around at this price or at this number. I guess there is a case for it if he stays out of foul trouble and there's no THJ and there's no Cade. Then like, sure, Asar looks much better. He's well over a fantasy point per minute in that aspect. But if they're full, man, I'd have a hard time playing a chalky Asar if that stuck around. I like Caruso if OKC's sitting guys out. He started last game, and he has kind of been weirdly utilized this year. He's been great when he's played, but he's been weirdly utilized. Man, if they're down a bunch of guys and he's starting 31 minutes and was just all over the place, I would be all in on this play again. $4,100. Obviously, pretty familiar with two Sacramento guys and how to defend them. Yeah, he probably has done so for multiple years at a high level in practice and whatnot. So if they're without a bunch of guys in OKC and Caruso starting, I would have a pretty good amount of interest. But other than that, Strus is going to get some ownership. You could do that. Keldon's fine.
You mentioned Champagny already.
Yeah, Harry B has weird as it sounds, Harrison Barnes has really good numbers without Stephon Castle plus like all the other guys in the lineup. We know how much of a zero Harrison Barnes can be. And it's not exactly like this big sample, but I found it interesting. He's a fantasy point per minute guy in the 60 plus minutes that he's played without Castle this year.
Yep. Power forward. Banchero's $9,800 again, had 30 actual against the Lakers. Just didn't really come through with the fantasy points that we needed. Miles Bridges, buckets is there. Evan Mobley was among our favorites this morning. $8,500, and then Triple J down to $7,800 was also there, and where the ownership was looking to go today as well. Jaren Jackson Jr. currently your highest rostered power forward today.
Yeah, that one's tough. Because he is such a good play. Basically, every time there's no John Morant, but it's just the same issues with him persist time and time again. It's like, can you stay out of foul trouble? Can you play the minutes? Can you rebound just a little bit?
To 24 shots versus the Clippers.
There's nothing bad. I will play 35 minutes and 24 shots, Jaren Jackson, 100 out of 100 times. 100 out of 100 times I'd play him. Especially at $7,800. I'd play him 100 out of 100 times. But it's just constantly the same issues. And now, on top of that, he's really popular. He's really, really popular. So, I love the play, and I love the price, and I love the matchup. Man, it's just such a frustrating roster because there's a chance he plays 35 minutes and takes 24 shots again, and he scores 45 actual tonight going up against Utah. Utah is 29th defensive rating. They're two fast-paced teams. Memphis has 125 implied points tonight. Jaren Jackson's range of outcome is like 45 actual. And also 5 fouls and plays 26 minutes tonight. So you really just have to make a decision and wrestle with like what that decision is. Do you want to play a chalky Jaren Jackson and possibly just be done? You'll be sweating basically until the 9 p.m. window.
The entire game?
Yeah, and then you get to the game, you're like, all right, if I didn't play him and he scores 40 actual, I'm dead. And if I do play him and he has 6 fouls, I'm dead because he's 40% owned.
Yeah.
So
I don't necessarily think you're dead unless you're playing both Mobley and Jackson, because I think Mobley is in a really good spot here.
I'm saying from a perspective, if Jaren Jackson is 5 fouls and
if
you're not winning a tournament, you're not winning.
If you play him and he has the low game, then you're dead. I think that he can give you 50 fantasy points today and not necessarily kill you if you didn't play him, because I do think Mobley can match that for a little bit more money. It all depends on your roster build, but there's so much value today. We built last night. We left $800 on the table. Like it's not like we were spending every dollar here. And I think that could be the case again today with your lineup build. So if you want to fade, now Mobley's 20% himself. You can play him at dual positions, him and Jackson. So you can play him at center and power forward, get that exposure. But for 12% less, you just play Evan Mobley, and a really good spot here against Portland as well.
Yeah, Evan Mobley looks really good. I wrote up his points prop today. He has failed to score less than 20 points in all 6 games Donovan Mitchell's played this year. And the usage rate is 25, 1.3 fantasy points per minute. Like, everything looks really good for Evan Mobley. I think people are more scared about the price than anything else, because there's nothing really to dislike. 25% usage rate, check. Darius Garland has a really tough matchup against Toumani Camara, right? Like, Toumani Camara is one of the better perimeter defenders, I think, regarded in the league. So you would think like, all right, well, Evan Mobley, 26% usage, 1.4 fantasy points per minute, official numbers, not Toumani Camara defense on him. Even if he did, that's just such a mismatch for Mobley. Like, a lot of the offense is going to flow through Evan Mobley. Big usage or assist bump when there's no Donovan Mitchell. So yeah, I love Mobley. I don't think that there's a wrong answer between the two, like between Evan Mobley and Jaren Jackson. But I also think if that's how you want to start your roster construction, that's a good place to start too. Mobley, Jaren Jackson, or just Mobley, or just Jackson. I think of the people we talked about, or you mentioned basically up until Jaren Jackson, those are the best 2 of that tier. Sure. I do think, like, I saw, is Bam still getting ownership? Yeah, not his ownership has kind of fallen off. I would, for the record, go back to Paolo as well. I think Paolo looks really good. Obviously,
40 minutes in a game that didn't really need him to play 40 minutes in. So that's
and he scored 30 actual for a guy that's averaging 5 assists per game. If you get 4 more assists out of him, you're looking at 47 fantasy points. You're basically at 5x at that point. And we know that there's an even higher ceiling than that. So I would also go back to the well on Paolo for what that's worth too.
Agreed. I would play Denny. I get that rather play Mobley at 85 than Denny at 77. I think both are fine plays. Obviously a little tougher spot for Denny going up against the Cleveland, defensively, but I don't necessarily hate the Denny play. I do like Aldama a lot today as well. For a little bit cheaper, $6,400, should continue to play the 30-ish minutes, and we know what kind of ceiling he has. And then if something happens to Jaren Jackson Jr., there's even more minutes for Sandy Aldama to be there. So,
yeah, I mean, he's starting now too, so not even really concerned at all about the minutes are.
Yeah, no, the minutes are good. I agree. So you got him at 64. We talked to OG already. Tobias is 59. Sohan 56 is there. Anything is in this like value range?
You can only click Sohan if he's starting, which
Sure.
I think they're flipping a coin.
7 p.m.
Yeah, they're flipping a coin whether he does or doesn't. I assume with Jalen Duren on the other side, he doesn't, but we'll see what they decide to do. Rishache is fine. Kelvin's fine. Niang is fine. Nothing of like real value. I don't think that this is the position I personally have like a lot of interest in the value tier. I think this is definitely a position mid-tier and up that I want to get to, especially with how much value we have at guard. So nothing else for me really sticks out.
Sure. Agreed. And yeah, again, DFS buddy, I don't mind any, honestly.
Agreed. I agree.
Center. We had Towns on the cover of the preview show because, I mean, listen, every spot is a great spot for Towns without Brunson. It's just whether or not we get a ceiling game out of Towns. 31-11 at 10K is not a ceiling game. That's just a meets value game at 52 fantasy points. So if you're spending up for Towns today, you really need like 60 plus on this slate to get you there. It is a great spot for him. Dallas certainly a matchup that Towns can and should take advantage of. We also just had Duncan Robinson.
Oh, wonderful. He's so excited to play for more Miami. Just garbage. I am definitely interested in Towns. Mitchell Robinson also listed questionable. Bodes pretty well for Towns. Without Mitchell Robinson on the floor this year, Towns is at a 39, including Brunson and McBride too, 39% usage, almost 1.8 fantasy points per minute, which is absurd. Yeah, it's hard to like argue Towns. I think at 10K against the front court that they're going to start Kai Jones. Like Dallas has had no resistance against anybody in any capacity when Anthony Davis has been off the floor. They're 29th in defense in March. It's a great spot. This is a spot that he can score 40 actual in. I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns has 260 bombs actual point games in his career. Like nobody's doubting the ceiling. He just hasn't been that basically since he hurt his knee against Boston. He hasn't been the same dude. So I like Karl-Anthony Towns, and I'm perfectly fine if you get to Karl-Anthony Towns, and I acknowledge that he could have a ceiling as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's just what it is, right? You're talking about on a slate like this where there are guys that have the matchups we're looking for, the usage rates we're looking for, the fantasy points per minute, all of it equals up, and you're like, wow, Towns could be the highest scoring player on tonight's slate if all of those things go well. If Kai Jones gets in foul trouble tonight, right, and Kessler Edwards is now bodying
and
up.
Dwight Powell, dude.
Like,
I mean,
absolutely no shot. So in tournaments, I definitely want some Towns exposure in my lineups. Again, we talked about you can play Mobley and Triple J at the center position tonight if you wanted to go there. And then you have the mid-range. You mentioned you wanted to talk some Walker Kessler here.
Yeah, I want to just circle back to Şengün first.
Okay.
I would. So I think like I am aware of like we've kind of talked about how bad the price has been lately, and it's for a while it's been quite bad. It's coming down a little bit, and this is a like really good spot. Atlanta's bottom 10, 22nd to be exact in opponents' points in the paint. They obviously, we've talked about it a lot. No Clint Capella does matter in this situation. I can't with definitive force say we're gonna see 40 minutes out of Alperen Şengün ever. Like we don't. It's like very game to game dependent, but he is such a high ceiling guy in a spot like this. super high pace, elite team total, great game environment.
Castle active.
Okay. I mean, it does line up to be a really good spot. So I like Şengün at 9K in tournaments. I'm not sitting here making him any type of priority, but like, I also wouldn't be surprised if he outscored Karl Anthony Towns.
Okay.
If we get the Şengün that we basically got like the full first half of the year where he was nightly almost triple double and then made an all-star team because of it. And then the last game, Şengün, but that is directly correlated to Fred VanVleet being back. Like he's always been really good because that 2-man game is really good. So
yep.
I would just mention Şengün before we move on.
Okay. Okay, let's go to the mids here then. You mentioned again, what is it about Walker Kessler tonight that has your eye?
I not so much like making it a priority. I just was more so poking fun that you like playing Utah more than anyone else.
Well, I don't listen. I liked it earlier this year when we could guarantee the minutes. $7,100. He played 29 and 31 minutes outside of this one Washington game where I got torched by him, and he had 20 fantasy points in 15 minutes. It's not like he was a complete zero. The minutes are encouraging. We know he has crazy block upside. You'd like to see him hit more shots. I don't know where these 3-pointers are coming from. Dude, look at the box scores. 26
of 32 of his 3-pointers have come in this last 5 games. 26 of 32 total.
Look at the zeros, 2, 0, 0, 0, 0, 6, 5, 6, 1, 8. What? Who?
That's the part.
Start launching threes.
That's the part that makes me a little skittish because he's not
playing by the rim,
playing by the rim, and he's the vertical. He's a lob threat, and he's a second chance threat, right?
He's supposed to be getting the ribs when the guards are bricking threes, not when he's bricking threes. I watched the game cast on that Washington game. It said Walker Kessler steal, 3 seconds went off the clock. Walker Kessler brick 3. I was like, did he just pull up for a 3 on a steal? What are we doing, Walker, here? I mean, listen, I guess if you're chucking 8 threes, there's a chance you have a night where you just make them.
If he goes 3 for 8 in that game, he's at 40 fantasy points with the bonus, right? So
yeah,
it is what it is. Again, I'm not like going full bore Utah, but I think in a game with 240 implied points and what could be competitive game. I mean, it's a 10.5 point spread, right? Like they keep it within that number. You're going to get 30 minutes out of most of these Utah starters. I think that there's a case for Walker Kessler, and then there's but he's I
didn't Google it. Has there been like a story about Kessler shooting threes now? Like,
I mean, you know, but he did take threes last year, and then he stopped, right?
Not at this level.
No, not this level. Also, I do think that it's a developmental thing. Like, hey, when we have Cooper Flagg next year, we need you to not bottle up the paint and not just sit in the dunker spot all game because Cooper Flagg and company will be attacking the rim. So I think that this is a developmental thing. I guess this is the best time for it in game, but nevertheless, Hartenstein, if there's no Chet and company, looks great. Jared Allen, if he's not played off the floor, looks great. If you can get 30 minutes out of him, he also looks great too.
Yeah, we had the Filipowski. Again, if you guarantee me the minutes, I would tend to play Filipowski. He's been really good when he's gotten extended this year. So you want to pivot off of Kessler there? You can go that direction.
Yeah, he started last game too.
Yeah. We have the Kelaware shout in chat. I know you're not a big Miami Heat play, but you did call him out on the preview show, and he has been really good. Back to being really good after a little bit of a slump there.
Yeah, I think where looks really good if he gets the minutes. If there's minutes that Khalil Ware is accumulating, he is a really good fantasy player. You never know. It could be 28, could be 35, could be 19 on a game-to-game basis, but they have at least extended him more often than they haven't lately. So in a competitive game, you could probably project somewhere near 30 minutes. And if you're getting 30 minutes out of Khalil Ware, he's too cheap.
Yep, I would agree with you there. 5,500, and then we had Kai Jones, who's going to obviously be up against Towns, so that's a difficult assignment in his own right. But offensively, Towns is not a good defender. Kai Jones has been really good both on the glass and very efficient shooting the basketball around the rim. $5,100. Do you have interest here?
Moderate. Moderate. I mean, he's kind of, I would say, pretty locked into like solid minutes. There's obviously inherent risk. He fouled out in 25 minutes 2 games ago. That is very much on the table in this game as well, with Karl Anthony Towns as his matchup. So I think it's fine.
Okay. Quickly circling back to Walker Kessler, Prize Picks being an absolute devil right now. He is their taco discount currently at 9.5 rebounds.
Hilarious.
There's no guarantee he plays more than 20 minutes. Given the random 15-minute game that was thrown in there, so that's a risky taco right now to go play on Prize Picks, the 9.5 rebounds. Because you look at like the recent games, he's cleared them except for that one game against Washington. So
he also had I think he had 20 in the first half against Toronto.
Obviously an elite rebounder. He's gonna start. 9.5 rebounds for the taco. Guys hammered these rebound props. But it would be so Utah for the whole Prize Picks community to be taking overs on Walker Kessler, and he plays 14 minutes tonight. So
that would be funny.
All right. Any other value at the center position?
We talk Wendell Carter a lot. You can play him in tournament. I don't know if you need to play him in a tournament, but you can. He's pretty popular. I think Edie's getting some ownership. Definitely not going there, especially if he's coming off the bench. The obligatory Isaiah Stewart shout, where Isaiah Stewart could find himself mid-20s if Duren were to get in foul trouble. That we always talk about that. $3,500.
A tournament cheapie. His floors not terrible for the price. In the floor really doesn't come as often as him paying off the price tag, so which is a benefit there.
Yeah, you just have to dodge him fighting and getting thrown out of games.
Literally, and that's not hyperbole. You literally have to dodge him fighting somebody, which is crazy.
Yep.
Crazy in an NBA.
Yep.
Thing, but it is.
If the Knicks, dude, there will be multiple fights if it's Knicks. I will set the over/under at 1.5 fights in a series between the Knicks Pistons, and I will take the over 1.5 fights in that series. Like brawls, like full brawls.
Yeah. DFS buddy saying if Cade is out, he likes Toby and Jalen Duren. Yeah.
I think there's a lot more to like than just them, but yeah.
Detroit in general, if there's no Hardaway, if there's no Cade, today will be
best team on the board. I think they look like almost the best team on the board.
Yep. I did say Castle's in, right? I think
yes,
already.
You did. Okay. Mitch Rob out.
Okay. Again, more things pulling me towards Towns. Still.
Yeah. You and Coach Chris both. I saw Coach Chris has from the first before we even went live comment of the day.
Is that what he said?
First, we were not even live, and Coach Chris was already talking Karl Anthony Towns.
There it is. Yeah, second comment, third comment of the day.
Salute to Coach Chris.
Stacks in there with the first comment says, "What up?" Larry said, "What up?" We didn't do this. I didn't run through, so I apologize, guys. Larry said, "Yo." KRAO says, "What's up?" Coach Chris came through with the Ingram call. So
shout out Andre Ingram.
Andre Ingram, shout out. All righty. Let's get a lineup going here. Again, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Anthony wanted to know Sam Merrill. Is Sam Merrill getting the minutes with Mitchell back? Mitchell out, rather.
By getting the minutes, he will not just absorb Donovan Mitchell's minutes, but he will play more.
Yeah. Jerome is where the ownership is there, Anthony.
Yes. The one thing I'd say, for what it's worth, also, I want to hear, in real time, I want to get your take on this.
Oh,
Do you know who the highest rostered center is right now? Don't look.
highest rostered center right now.
Right now, after recent news circulated, who do you think the highest rostered center is?
I have no idea. Jared Allen.
Precious Achua.
Oh, with the
Mitch Rob being out.
News. I'm not doing that. You doing that? Dual positional eligibility?
I am not playing a 35% Precious Achua. No, I will not be doing that.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
He is now the second. This is gonna. I mean, with all the questionables we have still, like, it's gonna go away. But if it breaks like this and Precious Achua is 35% rostered,
yeah,
have it. Have the slate. Take the slate. Take it.
David's popped in chat a few times. Says Butler greater than Cat tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, Grande obviously has said he is not as in on the Butler play, and I've said as well, the DFS ownership right now, nobody's playing the Jimmy Butler. So in tournaments, you're going to get a 1% Butler. Steph Curry ruled out though, so maybe that changes things now.
David, obviously that does change a little bit, but without, like, what was because you're screaming this before, but you were. We didn't know Curry was out. He was traveling with the team, questionable.
Curry officially now ruled out, so that does change some things here. It's still not a great pace game, as you pointed out, right? Pace down spot for Golden State.
Awful pace game.
Game total in this one's like 215, like one of the lowest on the board. That's not Orlando, Charlotte. But Buckets has been really good. And like I said, the betting community has been on Butler all day long. So I'm very interested now to see if any ownership floats Jimmy's way. Now, again, dual positional eligibility, mid-tier price tag, or upper mid-tier price tag, I guess. We'll see. We got
the ownership's gonna.
I bet he gets. I don't think he's going to be 30%, but I bet he gets to like 12%.
Oh, people love narratives.
I know you're the anti-narrative king here, so
you guys can keep all your narratives and get them away from the stream.
We'll see what happens with Butler. We'll update it obviously on site. Josh Okogie is available to play today.
Oh, buddy. Championship for Charlotte. I think if they lose tonight,
light it up, Josh Okogie.
I think if they lose, they're officially out, or that happened last game. I think they were like one of the first third team eliminated from the playoff contention or whatever.
Yeah.
Look, Jimmy Butler, no Curry this year. 26% usage, 1.3 fantasy points per minute. You know what those numbers are, John? They are not as good as Karl-Anthony Towns is, and they're not even as close in the same stratosphere as Karl-Anthony Towns.
Sure, but there's $1,300 difference between the two.
Yeah, and one guy is in a terrible game environment, and one guy is in an elite game environment.
I agree. I'm not arguing. No one's saying you can't play them both either, by the way.
I'm not saying you don't. I'm not sitting here saying you have to fade Jimmy Butler. What I'm saying is, I want
the Cade news. If I'm being honest with you, I would just like to get the Cade news because I'd really like to play Cade Cunningham today. Tell me this. Cade is in, right? Say Cade is in. Are you playing Cade or Towns? PJ Washington officially ruled out.
Oh, I'm playing so
Brandon
much.
Williams is available to play.
All right, so they have 9. If Kessler Edwards plays, which we were told he was going to. So that means Dallas has 9 players.
Does that kill Dinwiddie at all for you? I know Dinwiddie
probably
popping.
Probably a little bit. I wanted 8. I really wanted them to have.
And you really didn't want Brandon Williams, right?
Because I really didn't want Brandon Williams. He's a very high usage player. Yeah, Brandon Williams, 25% usage with all these guys out.
Yeah, he only played the 19 minutes in that game. Dinwiddie got the huge minutes run there. So, granted, in his 19 minutes, you see on the board 30 fantasy points there. So.
Yeah, I don't think I would play Brandon Williams unless he were in the starting lineup, and I don't think he starts. I guess let's play this out here. Dallas going to start for sure. Clay,
Yeah, Dinwiddie.
Kai Jones, Dinwiddie, Najee.
Sure. Christie.
And I guess he hasn't really started lately. I guess Christie.
I'm trying to think who would start of the two.
Yeah, I guess Christie. I guess
it'd be him or Hardy, right? Him or Hardy start at the two if they don't start Williams.
Unless they wanted to go like super small backcourt with Dinwiddie and Brandon Williams.
Yeah.
If
I would still play Dinwiddie. I'm not really too concerned about Brandon Williams there, but again, he proved last game 29 minutes against Brooklyn, that blowout, and he was 12 assists.
Yeah, and he did that with AD. So yeah. no AD, and no PJ is a big deal.
Yep, I agree. Again, all right, go back to that question though. Say Cade's in. Would you play Cade or Towns?
Factoring in if ownership stayed the absolute same, they're basically even. Jesus. I would say Towns. I would say Towns a little bit because I think that point guard is a much deeper position than center is.
Okay.
But I think it's like incredible. I mean, they're both super elite.
Can't believe Achua is the highest projected roster.
It's crazy, right? It's crazy. That and it like obviously just happened.
It'll probably even itself out too by the time this is all.
I don't get it really because I understand that Mitchell Robinson has played like a pretty okay role since returning and has played well. But guys, like Mitchell Robinson has missed games lately, and Precious Achiuwa has not really been extended. So it's very hard to like get to someone. 35% is just crazy.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I got Towns and Pippen in. Where do we go from here? Again, I wish if we could just get the Detroit news, we'd know if there's like some very easy value plugs.
There is very easy value plugs.
You liked Black.
Anthony Black. I was going to say Anthony Black, and then you switch Pippen and Black because Anthony Black's in the 7 p.m. window. Just in case, you never know.
Sure.
We talk about it all the time.
We do. All right. 62.40 per position per player.
62.40. Well, power forward is a position I think that we're going to spend up at. So between Mobley,
I like Mobley
and Triple J. Yeah, we could play Mobley.
Small forward.
Another position that like is really gross if you drop
again because we don't know, right? Like if we had the Detroit news, if we knew what to do with OKC, there'd be guys that
maybe some Mikal.
Bridges.
Yeah, I mean I don't want to like go absolute crazy on Knicks because like there is also the campaign stuff that we could be dealing with as well, and that's also annoying.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we could double center. There was a value center down here that we wanted to like play. I said Kai Jones is 51 the other side of that matchup. Khalil Ware is 55.
I think this is why a lot of people are also playing Vince Williams.
Probably, yeah. Or Achua, right? Because
it's a bad with the way that it's currently setting up. It's there's not like great value.
Right. without the Detroit news, right? We just
without the Detroit stuff, without OKC stuff.
Yeah, let's just play campaign then, just because we need. He's not even as cheap, right? Like he's
play Payne at shooting guard and Bridges at small forward because small forward sucks.
Okay.
Max 3 Knicks is what
I mean, it's a matchup against Detroit. It's not bad. Dallas, rather. It's not the worst.
It's a really good matchup for sure. Without Anthony Davis and PJ, who's their other best defender.
Yeah,
it's definitely a good matchup.
We just did Triple J.
Clem, we like Najee Marshall quite a bit without PJ and Anthony Davis.
Yep.
He's just expensive. Like he's a definite pivot off of someone like Triple J or Denny Avdia, who are both much more popular than him.
Agreed. I wish we just had like an under 4K obvious play.
I mean, I'll say it.
Isaiah Stewart.
It's Isaiah Stewart. If you were to play anyone down here, I probably wouldn't. Or Vince Williams at 35.
Yeah. Again, obviously we're getting a little spendy here with Mobley. We could go down. I just feel like I want somebody in that Cleveland game against Portland. I just
Well, I'm good with playing Mobley. Just don't play Triple J. We could just make that our pivot.
We'll play Aldama. How about that? We'll do Aldama.
Yeah, and then we don't have to play Beef Stew and
Aldama. We'll do Mobley. And then that gives us a 52 util. 52 util is, I mean,
you want to play him, just play him. I already know you're just click Kai Jones and move on. I know you want to play him.
All right. Black, Payne, Bridges, Aldama, Towns, Pippen, Mobley, and Kai Jones until we can figure out this Detroit value, which will hopefully come in the next couple of minutes. We'll have all the updates in the playbook. We'll have the ownership on site here as well. Be on the lookout. Tonight, dropping is going to be the MLB DFS preview show along with the NBA. So we're going to be doing 2 shows, myself and Grande, getting you guys ready. Baseball's back, opening day on Thursday, 4 p.m. slate. So
3 p.m. on FanDuel.
3 p.m. on FanDuel. So, but we're doing a DraftKings show anyway. So yes, baseball season is here. We're going to be doing some baseball and basketball for you guys here moving forward. So we appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you check out both shows. Hit those likes, those subscribes, those shares. We'll be back tomorrow live at 5. Good luck tonight, everybody.